Thank you very much for coming. Those of you who were planning to be in another session and, just happened to find yourselves here, and, I'm honoured. Thank you. Now, welcome back to those of you who I seem to be spending the day with, and those of you, yes, welcome again. And obviously for those of you who are sort of brand new to seeing me, I'm Neil Wilkins, a little bit about me in a second. Quick show of hands though, just so that I can obviously pitch this at an appropriate level. Who's got LinkedIn as an account? Great. Okay, so everybody, who is actively using LinkedIn? Okay, who is seeing real business value from using LinkedIn? Okay, so you see kind of where we took that. It was like, yeah, lots of you got it, but not necessarily seeing a huge value. So this session is it's kind of like a whistle-stop tour through some of the best bits of LinkedIn and just some of the best practice in 2020. Okay. What you'll find is that along with all of the other social networks, and those of you who've had kind of Facebook for forever, and those of you who are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, blah, 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 you'll know that these things evolve and morph over time. Okay, so if you're using these social networks for personal use or commercial sort of professional use, you'll be very, very aware that each year they're not the same as they were in previous years. The good news, as far as LinkedIn is concerned, is that there's never been a better time to be proactively using LinkedIn. It's one of the remaining, although it's been around for literally years, it's one of the remaining little kind of heartlands of not too much noise, not too much chaos. Facebook, obviously, just think of your own Facebook timeline. It's crazy. There's so much stuff going through it. If you've got Instagram and you've been using that, particularly if you've been using that professionally, you'll see very, very quickly that they've changed all of the algorithms. Everything is so, so different. You can't be heard unless you're already very well established. Now, of course, that wasn't the case this time last year, so things happened very, very quickly. But as I say, the really good news, the starting point for today, is the fact that LinkedIn is potentially going to be one of your biggest assets for this year in terms of sales, communication, your profile of the business. So some huge opportunities which we'll talk about as we go through this session. So who am I and what gives me the right to stand up in here and talk to you about this stuff? Well, I've been working in sales and marketing as both a sales and marketing person, business development, marketing manager, etc., and more recent years as a consultant for about, well, just coming into my fourth decade. It's just crazy the amount of time I've been spending doing this stuff. I started off in psychology. I've got a bit of a spin towards the sort of psychology element of communications, but I would say predominantly sales and marketing consultancy is what I do. For me, the really important bit though, as far as this session's concerned, is that I've been doing digital since 1994. So kind of it wasn't even as exciting as this particular slide, which is not exciting. It was very much just words on a screen. And back then, as a marketer, you could look at that and think, there's something in this, because if I can see something on my screen and you can see it on yours and somebody the other side of the world can also see it, there might be a way of communicating using this professionally. And of course now that just sounds, well, yeah, obvious. But back in 1994, it was very, very early days and it didn't kind of know what it was as a medium. Now it is the way fundamentally that we communicate, or the potential that we have for communicating really effectively and positioning ourselves as individuals and as companies in a fundamentally different way than we could 10, 15, 20 years ago. I've also got a LinkedIn All-Star profile. Whoa, look at me. That's not to say, hey, aren't I clever? What that is saying is that LinkedIn gives you encouragement and I wouldn't say tutorials as such, but it gives you encouragement and feedback as you start to create extra kind of detail and extra media and extra value in your account. It starts to take you towards what LinkedIn call an all-star profile. Now, really interestingly, that doesn't mean it's perfect. So LinkedIn, on their little scale of how they rate your personal profile, always leaves a little bit extra at the top, the little kind of icing on the top, the cream on the top, for you to actually improve it. And I'll explain why that is in a little while. But the target really is to get an all-star profile, and that at least gets you onto the map in LinkedIn. Okay, because one of the things about LinkedIn is, yes, you can use it proactively, but it's also a really useful tool to be using reactively. In other words, if you can set this thing up properly and actually shape it in such a way that it's doing work for you 24/7, you can create this thing almost as a member of your team. It can be your personal assistant in terms of making appointments, in terms of just looking really appropriate to the people you're trying to engage with, and it's about future-proofing yourself. And the reason I say it's about future-proofing is because if you choose, after this session or beyond, not to really be proactive and really engaged in LinkedIn, then there is a huge challenge to you because your competitors, your peers, others are going to be doing this, okay? So have we not got any choice in this matter? Well, there's always choice, but there's consequences if you choose not to play in this. So I would certainly encourage that that is at least the ground zero that you should be aiming for as far as your profile is concerned. And we'll explore some of the stuff that will involve that as we go through this session. Okay, so this is positioned as a workshop, okay, so this isn't an hour and a half of Neil talking. You'll be very pleased to hear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of set the scene. I'm going to give you some of the best practice for 2020, just share with you some of the things that the most empowered people on LinkedIn are doing very successfully to generate business, to support their customers, to communicate what they have to communicate. And we'll do this in such a way as I'll introduce some stuff to you, and then there's a kind of a breakout session where in pairs, hopefully the numbers will kind of work, it's then down to you to be figuring out how you're going to fuel your LinkedIn account. And I'll explain what I mean by that, because setting up a LinkedIn account, excuse me, is literally just the start of the process. It's not the end game. The end game is to continuously fuel it with appropriate content. So that's what we're going to figure out as we go through this session. So my target for you is that if you've got some really good experience and some good stuff that you want to share, tell me, because you know I know lots of stuff about this subject, but if you've got some really interesting anecdotal evidence for your business and for your sector, do share it. You know, it'd be great to hear it. Also, if there's anything that I talk about, obviously I live and breathe this stuff, so you know, there can be a danger that I can be sort of talking away and you think, oh, he's lost me, not really quite sure. And because this is the afternoon session, there may well be a time when you think, oh, just drifting a little way. Hopefully I'll spot it and we'll correct it, but if there is a chance that you want me to explain something twice, more than happy to do that, okay? It's not a huge group, so you know we can have that discussion, so it's a two-way thing. In the practical exercise, I would really encourage you, as I always do, to give as much as you want to get back, okay? There's an opportunity and there's a little tool, little model that I'm going to share with you, which will allow you to really fast track your LinkedIn account and really start to empower it. The more you put into this thing, the more you commit to it to build the momentum, the more you're going to get back, both in this session but also after you leave today. So I'd certainly encourage you to experiment and explore and really kind of test out some of this stuff, because it really can be, you know, quite a fundamental difference to the way that you have done things in the past. Now you'll notice I've given you some of the printouts, so all of the slides, all of the presentation is there available to you as a printout, and there's also a couple of little sheets at the back of these slides. One is to make notes in effect in the same kind of order. If there's anything that you spot and you think, oh, I need to go and kind of search on that and do a little bit more of an exploration of it. If there's anything in there as a little reminder to yourself, if there's stuff in there you think, I don't really understand that, I need to go away and research it later, there's a chance, obviously, because it flows in the same order as the slides, that you're going to be able to do that. And then there's something right on the back, the final sheet, which is the rule of thirds, which I will come on to. That's going to be the exercise. Okay, so quite a simple format, but just capture any ideas and thoughts that you have as you go. Don't save them for later, because if you're anything like me, memory like a sieve, it will disappear. Okay, so I started off by saying there's a huge benefit this year, and it is very different this year to how we've had it before. What we're going to do is basically position potentially LinkedIn as one of, or if not the most important sales tool or business development tool or customer support tool or peer-to-peer engagement tool that you will be using this year. Okay, so that's quite a bold claim that this has the potential for doing that. But I certainly see it in my business, and a lot of the clients that I work with, a lot of the people that I train, are now seeing this year as being the year when this is the place to be. Okay, it wasn't always like this, but now is the time to be capturing this. And the two things which hopefully were the things that brought you to this room were that basically what you want to do is pretty much fast track the best possible LinkedIn profile that you can have. So we'll explore what those things will be. And then for me, really importantly, how to fuel it with powerful customer-friendly updates. So when people talk about publishing content online, that's what we're talking about here. But we've got to figure out what we mean by content. What is content? What could it be? What should it be? What's going to be possible for you to actually use as fuel? So it's really important to be thinking about this from a sort of a practical sense as well as a desirable sense, because some of the stuff that you might want to do might involve considerable amounts of time and energy. But hopefully by the end of this, you'll be able to balance off the value you expect to get from this with the amount of work you're going to have to do. So this stuff doesn't come for free. Well, it comes for free from a financial perspective, but it doesn't come for free in terms of the commitment and thinking behind it, and maybe some of the time involved in actually creating some updates on your account. But we'll explore that and we'll see if we can get that, super efficient using the model that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so why and how do people use LinkedIn right now? Well, one of the big things is that the vast majority, over 2/3 of people using LinkedIn are decision makers or have influence in the decision-making process. And the people who are most active in LinkedIn are the ones who are the decision makers. So we're looking at people here who are your kind of almost premium audience, if you like. So if you're one of these people, you might actually be an influential decision maker, somebody who holds budget, somebody who can make things happen. Then you are in this top sort of 2/3, if you like, of the most active people on LinkedIn. So this isn't a quiet, dormant audience where people have just got their CV online, they're waiting for the next big job. This is actually people who are proactively using LinkedIn. So there's a big tick in the box in terms of the quality of people you're talking about. Interestingly, according to Biz Report, 40% of businesses have found new customers using social networking, and predominantly we're talking about LinkedIn here. So there is an opportunity, if you are in a business development or sales kind of role, finding new customers, and there's a way to do this, and it's not selling, but finding new customers using something like LinkedIn is definitely possible. Again, wasn't always like this, but right here, right now, there is a ripe audience waiting to hear from you. It's about now balancing the message and what you have to say appropriately for that audience. And 58% use social media for engaging with what are called special interest groups. Now, of course, in your industry, there will be associations, there will be trade bodies, there will be the media, there will be publications, there will be thought leaders, there will be influencers. In all of the different sectors in which you operate, this is what we call special interest groups. They have a special and vested interest in a particular topic or subject. That's really important, because by understanding your target audience, the person you want to be engaging with, ideally in this perfect scenario in LinkedIn, you have an opportunity of kind of tapping into them in a very influential way. And when we come on to looking about the content, this is something that's going to crop up, I think, as a big, big opportunity for you as an organization, but also individually. So think about special interest groups. Always be thinking about, okay, who's making the noise? Who's talking? Who is influential? Who are the thought leaders? Who are people listening to? Because ultimately, wouldn't it be great if you were one of those people? Because then people are listening to you. Where are people going to go first if they need some value, if they need some ideas, if they need some innovation, if they need some support? It's into the people who are the most trusted and reliable and authentic in these special interest groups. So potentially, I'm just putting a little flag there, potentially this is an opportunity, but we'll come on to exactly what that means in a while. And how is LinkedIn being used by most people? Well, the vast majority of people are using it just to keep in contact. LinkedIn has a number of different ways that it will share and alert you. If you're using the mobile app for LinkedIn, what you'll find very, very quickly is it alerts you and prompts you. People have got new jobs. Opportunity to congratulate them on the new job. People are, posting really high value content and it's being reviewed by their peers. Again, that will start to be published at the top of the list. So you're going to get LinkedIn starting to push stuff to you that potentially is really quite valuable for you. 54% of people using LinkedIn are engaging with these special interest groups. It's not just about your profile. It's about how you use that profile to engage with others. And for finding business intelligence, and I always really like this statistic because it just backs up something I've been saying for years and years and years, which is when we think of social media, most people think it's all about the talking, it's all about the communication and all about the push. I would suggest it's probably 50-50. 50% of the use of LinkedIn should, depending on how you view it, be about listening, be about getting market intelligence, be about kind of just constantly monitoring and having this kind of day-to-day feed about who's saying what, what's going on, what are the key trends, where's the market moving, big customer wins, that gets leaked, through LinkedIn a lot of the time. So there's a lot of really interesting business intelligence in there, and of course that is stuff that can help you make better decisions if you can tap into it. And of course then connecting with customers. If you're publishing the right kind of content, you're going to be connecting with customers, whether they like it or not. If they're in LinkedIn, you're connected with them. If you're publishing the best kind of content, which we'll talk about in a minute, you stand a very, very good chance of always being on their radar. And that's one of the really key things about this. It is not about great big splashes of, hey, here's our next case study, hey, here's our next big product launch. It's about the concept of drip feeding. Little and often is the way that wins in LinkedIn. So yes, you might have a big news release, you might have a big press announcement that everybody's sharing, and yeah, great, of course you will do that. But beginning to get into the mindset of little and often drip feeding is the way that you stay on people's radar. So when we come to look at the style and tone of the content and actually what you're going to publish, just be thinking little and often, little bite-sized pieces of material. That's what the world is looking for from you. So the starting point is creating what we might term a powerful profile. So who would say that they're really comfortable with their profile on LinkedIn? Quick little show of hands. Who'd say, yeah, we're not going to look at it, by the way, so you can just say it's only down to you. So would you say you're comfortable with it, or you just think there might be more to do? I'm sensing there might be more to do. I'm just going to basically hone in on this. We will go live when I go in and do the kind of the second bit of the session. I just want to cover the principles, and then I'll show you kind of how that looks.
It would be interesting to see how bad it is.
Or how good it is. It's just what it is, and this is the thing. Even though you might have what LinkedIn call an all-star profile, there is always an opportunity for you to be improving it and continually adding to it. So the LinkedIn profile is just a quick little snapshot of one over there. Typically has a cover image and a profile picture. Okay, so the first thing really is that you want to just be setting the correct scene. So much like Facebook, where you have a cover image, it's the kind of image of the family or the image of the thing that you do. You need a professional equivalent. You also need to be having something that is in your profile picture, something that really kind of looks like you. The picture does need to look like you. You often see people, well, sometimes you'll see a LinkedIn profile and it will just have the little grey silhouette because the person has, I don't want to be seen. The clue is in the word social media. If you're not releasing who you are, nobody's going to connect with you. So those days are gone. You have to have an accurate picture. I'd also recommend that you don't have a picture that has sunglasses, your collar up and you're kind of almost like hiding behind a sort of a veneer. Be an authentic you. Because people are going to check you out before meetings. People are going to check you out if they're looking to offer you the next great opportunity. Whatever they're looking at from you, they need to be able to engage with the real you. Now, some people like, particularly if they're small business owners, like to put a logo as part of their kind of almost like thumbnail sort of crumb trail there, the little kind of, sort of headshot. Social media. Do people engage with logos or do they engage with people? I'd say they engage with people. So if you have to put, and you want to put, the company brand or the team or whatever else you want to do, use the cover image, that big opportunity to have a bit of a sort of a flagship statement image, but always keep the thing that's going to travel around LinkedIn with you, your little headshot, keep it you. Keep it quite close as well, close up. Again, lots of people take photos and they're kind of miles from the camera, so you get this little tiny sort of pinhead person. You think, I can't really recognize them if I saw them. Again, it's about engagement. The more you can make this easy to be found, easy to be seen, and really accurate, the better.
So
yes.
In terms of cover profile, what kind of ideas have you got for general stuff we could do? Like if we didn't want to put a logo, but would a product be okay, or like a picture of a site, or what's best?
Okay, so I think it will come down to kind of what's your elevator pitch. Okay, so what we mean by elevator pitch is if you're in the elevator with somebody, you're going between 3 or 4 floors, so you've got about 10 to 15 seconds to get your message over as to who you are. That image, the cover image, has to kind of tell that same story, or at least support that story. So if your image is, hey, I'm a marketing consultant, but I'm also a mountain biker. So I want to show a picture of me on my mountain bike on this beautiful Welsh mountain sort of view or whatever. You know already, because of the content and the details down there, that I'm a marketing consultant, but I also do mountain biking. That's the elevator pitch, because then that's the thing that differentiates you. Because there are 1,000, more than that, 10,000, 100,000 marketing and sales consultants, but how many marketing and sales consultants do mountain biking passionately? Well, the number's going to come right down. So what you're looking to try and do is just get that little point of differentiation. So something that helps tell that story, because obviously what you're trying to do is get across a lot of information in a very short space of time. And so that cover image allows you to do that. So we'll come on to the elevator pitch a little bit later when we talk about the content you're going to use. But it's about understanding, how can you be special? How can you actually position yourself as something just a little bit different, a little bit, wouldn't have expected that. That's the kind of sort of message you want to be leaving behind.
Neil, sorry, your example there is quite personal, i.e. it's not, I'm not saying not professional, but it's not corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you would...
It's an interesting word, corporate. Now, what we have to always be mindful is that whether in a small business, multinational business, medium-sized business or whatever, there are guidelines to how you are expected to position yourself. The word corporate is a really interesting word, because I think a lot of people lose an opportunity in social media by almost feeling quite constrained by the corporateness of it. Now, I'm totally in sympathy with brand guidelines, totally get it. I've written them, I've been part of them, etc., etc., so I get it. For me, the challenge with it is that if it's too restricting, it makes everybody look and sound and feel the same, and what you don't get is that social bit of social media. So I'd want to be seeing something that kind of reflected, so it kind of, so it reflects a personality, it's the you as part of the brand. So you might not get the answer today, so it's kind of a rhetorical thing. It's just kind of to reflect on, can I portray myself appropriately for the business, but at the same time as just showing a little bit about who I am? Now, in my example of the mountain biking thing, I haven't actually got as my cover image right now, but I could have. It's different for me because it's my business. So if you're playing within the constraints of a brand, which obviously you are, then it's about understanding where those kind of boundaries are as far as the brand is concerned. So you don't want to push this way out and just be completely extreme, but it's about trying to sort of push up against those boundaries and say, could I just sort of experiment a bit? Could I push it a little bit further and see what happens? So I'm not saying go against it, I'm saying play with it.
I think ours was, well, mine still is. We had a meeting a few years ago, and it was like a picture of a receiver with Alex Copco badge on it. It's nothing flashy, and I think it's a bit boring. If we go around and everyone has the same, and somebody's looking at me and then Henry, and they go, that's the same one that was on earlier, as you say, it's not very personal, it's a bit lax.
There's so many people doing what we're doing on LinkedIn. Everybody's like kind of looks kind of similar, background, white male mostly, wearing a suit, kind of very like no uniqueness at all, right? So if you have something like this which can make unique, it's going to set you apart, right?
Absolutely. And it is about you. This is the thing. Yes, you are totally and utterly representing the business, but it's about you and how you represent the business. So as long as it remains professional, as long as it remains appropriate, and you don't push it too far, I'd say play with it. Absolutely.
What we're talking about here, Neil, because that's the profile picture, yeah?
Yes.
So we on about this
We're on about
background,
that
yeah.
cover image, yeah, the top one, the one, yes. So literally this one here, which happens to be about food in this visual, this visual
I
piece.
think mine's just actually blank. Actually.
If you leave it blank, LinkedIn will fill it in. Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't
That
even
is.
aware that that's something you could do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it is about sort of conveying this message. So already we're starting to see that there are going to be lots of different flavours of this, and that, you know, everybody is going to look sort of slightly different, if you like, and that is a good thing. It is about kind of being a little bit more identifiable, if you like, as part of this. Now, one of the other things as well is almost considering this as being your kind of personal website. Now, you may well, out of work, have websites for whatever it is that you do as leisure interests and things like that, but this is your professional face, okay? So as part of this, and as you'd expect on a website, a commercial website, it will have lots of links. Now, the beauty of LinkedIn right now is it allows you, and we'll go sort of live and have a look at this a little bit later, it allows you to be able to create almost like a portfolio as part of your profile. So you can put in PDFs. If you've got a brochure, be it a company brochure or one for the products and services that you're promoting right here, right now, you can do that. You can add in those things. You can add in links. You can add in images. So you can make this kind of almost like feature rich. And it's a very simple way of actually creating more of a sort of a portfolio style, rather than just, here's my job title, this is the job description, next, this is the job title. Because nobody's interested in that really, unless you have, you know, gloriously exciting job. It probably is going to sort of fall quite flat. So people want that level of interactivity. So if you thought of this as like your personal website, what kind of things might you want to be putting in there? Because obviously that is really important. And if you do have a website, which obviously the business has a website, or if there are specific campaigns that you're running, actually adding in a whole bunch of these other assets as well is a really important thing to do, almost like a one-stop shop for finding out about what you're up to right now, and some of the value that you're going to be offering. So obviously including the website in there. If you have a blog, if you're already producing content of, you know, a variety of different natures, obviously you do that. Your marketing materials, there's undoubtedly going to be marketing materials available that you can actually upload as PDFs into there, and of course any other social media accounts. So this is your one-stop shop to find out more holistically about you. But it's really important to be thinking about the job description that LinkedIn has. Okay, I've said it's really important. I've said there's a huge opportunity here, but it can't do everything for you. None of these tools, they are just tools, they're just communication tools. A lot of people sort of think, you know, particularly things like Facebook and Twitter, is like, you know, that's the end game. Oh, I've got to be constantly publishing to there, otherwise my life's not going to be meaningful, and this, that. They're just tools. They always were, they always will be. So what we have to do is decide actually in the whole mix of things where these tools are going to fit. Okay, so the starting point, having created a profile, the starting point really for getting your best traction in 2020 is to figure out what the job description is for your LinkedIn account. What do you want it to achieve? Now, generally, if you're in a customer communication role, be it sales, customer support, buying, whatever sort of role you're in, it's going to be linked to your customer's journey. Now, the customer journey as such is based around 3 points of contact. And you can decide where you put LinkedIn in those 3 points of contact. So there are 3 parts of the journey as far as your customer has. You can use LinkedIn to build awareness, okay, with new customers, with new contacts and new connections. You can also use it to help, if you're in a sales role, particularly to help convert the customer from being just aware of you into some kind of engagement, and or placing an order, and or coming back and doing repeat purchases. Or you could use LinkedIn as part of the retention stage. So that's based around having, you know, an existing portfolio of existing customers, and actually you're going to use it to encourage advocacy. And what we mean by advocacy is the sharing of the content and the materials that you're publishing. LinkedIn is probably not going to be able to do more than one job for you at any one time. So it's always a really good idea to be very, very clear about the job description that LinkedIn has as far as you're concerned. Okay? So Again, rhetorical question, you don't have to decide now, but it's something that's really important. Do you want it to create awareness with new contacts and new connections? Do you want to help people convert who already know you, already connected to you? Or do you want to be creating content that helps people to share the great stuff that you're doing so you get referrals from them? It can only do one of three stages, because this is the customer's journey. They're either brand new to you, they're either just converting, or they're either existing connections or customers. So by deciding what you want it to do, suddenly what we've done is we've honed in from all these great big opportunities that are out there, we've honed in on giving it a particular function. Now for me, I'm using LinkedIn at this level here for a whole bunch of reasons. Okay, so I've got a new podcast that I'm running and was going through it sort of last year, doing quite a lot of podcasting on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I need to build up the base, if you like, of people listening to the podcast. So I'm using LinkedIn as a bit of a sales and promotional channel, if you like, getting new business as a result of the podcast by attracting people and promoting my podcast within LinkedIn. So I've got quite a good, strong, sort of customer base there that are kind of listening, and I've known them for a long time, been connected for years, etc., etc. So I'm not saying they're not valuable. Of course, they're hugely valuable. But my focus, when I think about how I'm going to use it on a day-to-day basis, is about that particular job description. So that's the function I've given it. If yours is different, that's fine. But it's about being really clear, what do I want LinkedIn to help me with? So take a few steps backwards and think, what are my biggest challenges? Could LinkedIn as a digital tool, could that help me solve some of my challenges? Do I need to just be more out there? Well, it can certainly help with that. Do you need help with the conversion point? Do you need help sort of, so that customers don't feel like they're guinea pigs in the relationship and they're the first people to do it? Do you want them to feel confident? Because LinkedIn can very much position you as, really current, really relevant and really informed. And that can help with the confidence at the conversion stage. Or if you've got and this is the reason for asking the question as to how well established your LinkedIn is at the moment, if you've already got a very well established customer base in LinkedIn, maybe you start thinking about publishing content that's very easy to share. Because what you're doing is you're looking for people to share that content, because that's the advocacy that then brings further connections in at this awareness stage. So by being really crystal clear over what your tasks are, what your objectives and goals are, and seeing whether you can slot one of those into that mix, because then that's your starting point for the decisions as to what you can do and what you shouldn't do using it on a day-to-day basis. So attracting the right connections, let's make an assumption that, okay, part of this is actually you'd like a bit more activity in there. And of course, as I said to you, how many people are getting great value from it? Well, probably most of the time is because actually you're not really attracting a huge amount of connection and interaction. So there's four things you can do. You can obviously go with personal recommendations. So you can actually ask people as you meet them. So much like a group like this, you say, well, actually, can we connect? Can we connect? I've got some really good stuff on there I want to share with you. Can we just sort of connect on there? So that, personal recommendations is a good starting point. Going back through your business card pile with people you're not connected with, looking at your other social networks. If you're using Facebook, for example, is there anybody you're connected with in Facebook you think, actually, it would be quite useful to just connect in LinkedIn? Most people are going to say yes. Okay, but that's not necessarily always a good thing, because you've got to decide on your contact strategy. Are you going to accept everybody, or as what LinkedIn, when it first started out, suggested that you should do, is connect with people you'd be happy to recommend? That's quite a different thing. If you play the game of accepting everybody because you want to look popular, because you want to have more friends and connections than everybody else, that comes with the little consequence that people are going to want to sell you something. So if you say yes, accept, know that 95% of those unknown people have got something they want to sell to you. Go and explore and play that game and you'll see it's totally true. It works every time. So a lot of the time what I recommend is that if it's people you've done business with and you'd be happy recommending them, that's a very, very good filter for the kinds of people you want to connect with. But it's down to you. It's your account. And of course, building those right connections is about keeping your status updated, and that's where we're going to take this now. It's about the drip feeding, it's about being interesting, and I love those three things: being current, being relevant, and looking informed. Current, relevant, informed. Those are the three things that your target audience is looking to hear from you. That you're current, that it's relevant to them, and that you seem informed, so you're sharing good, high-value stuff.
The bottom left one.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about it from the perspective of an influencer, is that they would they wouldn't ever block anybody from following them, right? Because the more people follow them, even if they are trying to sell them something, if they like something, then their connections see it, and it just increases the chances of somebody seeing your content, which they might buy it in the end if they see the content. Right? That's the way I look at it. So I do the accepts all strategy, because that's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, currently I'm kind of there with that as well. I'm sort of doing that. And again, because I'm at the awareness stage, even if it looks like somebody who's going to be, probably they're going to sell me something, I'm going to get a message very quickly after. Exactly. But it might just be that some of the content really resonates and then they follow the podcast as well. So it's you've got to experiment, you've got to play with this, but know there are consequences of doing it that way. Probably if I had to make a recommendation now, I think is because the amount of value you're going to get from using LinkedIn at scale means probably accepting most. If there are some really blindingly obvious ones that you wouldn't say yes to, then clearly you won't do that. But I think, yeah, maybe there is a middle ground now that just allows you to be a little bit more flexible and experiment. Yeah, definitely. So no, I'd certainly agree. So best practice right now is, in essence, these 6 things. This is what LinkedIn is expecting you to do to get best traction. So look and listen before speaking. It's great to get the right kind of tone of voice, okay? And we'll explore what that's going to be. Be positive and thought-provoking. Just sharing company news probably isn't enough. Now, you might have some really good company stories and you think, Jenna, we're going to put this out because it's really, really good. But just product updates and that kind of stuff is probably not stimulating enough, certainly not to get advocacy, unless it's a very, very, very happy customer. Chances are nobody's going to share it. So think about how you can be a little bit more thought-provoking, still on brand. You've got to stay within the brand guidelines. You can't be right the way out there, but maybe just push that boundary just a little bit. Finishing things with a question mark rather than a full stop is generally very, very good practice because that invites a view back. If you finish something with a full stop, it's like, there's my view and that's it, I'm not interested. Whereas if you finish it with a question mark, it's like, okay, this is what I think, what do you guys think? So it's a really nice, inclusive way of practicing this.
The only problem with that, Neil, is that if you ask the question, nobody answers it.
That's what people forget about, right?
You see that, and you scroll through, what's everyone think of this, and then it's just...
And nobody does. And it's absolutely right. The good thing about what I'm going to suggest when we come on to the content bit is that if you're doing content at scale, so you're doing a lot of content, that's gone anyway. So nobody's really going to see it because you've replaced it with the next bit sort of a little bit later. If that was your one article this month and you're sat there waiting and nobody comes and the tumbleweed rolls past, yeah, it's a problem. But if you're doing it at scale, it's disappeared in effect from your timeline and everybody else's so quickly. So I think, yeah, don't beat yourself up over that. It does happen. I mean, I do loads of stuff like that and I think, oh, that's a shame because would have been a really good question and nobody was listening. It might not be the question's wrong, could have been the day of the week, could be the time of the day, could be just something in the phrasing, or maybe the image that was posted with it wasn't quite right. So there's 101 reasons why. But I think, yeah, just move on. Just keep publishing is the real trick.
Just to say, there's probably a second fear which I hear about most in our industry is people don't want to post something because people point out the issues with it, or like that pipe shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
That's like probably one of the biggest fears about publishing content
in
general.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I've got a client who's in the hydraulics industry and they face exactly the same thing. Yeah, they've got health and safety people all over their social media just looking for, oh, you're not wearing high vis, or you haven't got a hard hat there, or the vehicle was parked at 90 degrees to how it should have been. And so it's about being careful, I think, but there will be maybe in this whole thing about sharing technical expertise, maybe there'll be stuff that, you know, isn't product related. It's a little bit more generic. It's thought provoking and interesting. Maybe it's about some kind of innovation, but you steer away from maybe using images, particularly in imagery that kind of could fall into that trap, unless you're super confident that, you know, it is totally technically correct. Maybe just kind of sort of back off from that a little bit. But there are certainly things that you can share and be talking about that aren't commercially sensitive. You know, they might not be customer focused. You maybe talk in anonymous terms about a really interesting case study. The client that I've just sort of mentioned there, they're not allowed, because of some of those quite sensitive sites that they go to, they're not allowed to show any customer branding on there, but customer equipment and stuff is absolutely fine. And so it's kind of figuring out what's safe. And keeping within those, you know, those kind of boundaries, really. Adding value at all times. If you're publishing something on your status update or in an article or contributing in a group, and you think, actually, it was okay, but it wasn't really great, back off. Don't publish it. You know, when I'm saying doing this stuff at scale and publishing lots of content, it doesn't mean that you've got to be doing it all the time, all the time, all the time. So there's an opportunity to just think, no, actually it's not quite as good as I would like, so I'm not going to publish that today. So make sure you're adding some kind of value at all times. And maintain a really consistent elevator pitch. Just constantly have that as a little filter, little voice in your ear that sort of says, is this on brand? Is this consistent with what I'm trying to do? Is this consistent with the job description I'm giving to LinkedIn? And is it consistent with the kind of the message that we're running right here, right now? And if all those boxes are ticked and it's technically correct, yeah, you're pretty much safe to put that in. So, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this thing work? Okay. The biggest theme, if you listen to any of the big sort of commentators sort of in social media right now, you'll see, if you look online, you'll see it's all about storytelling. Okay, this is the new method, if you like, of both sales, but also certainly digital communication. It's all about telling a story. Okay, now you've got to figure out what a story means to you. Okay, it could be little sound bites about your day. Hey, I happen to be at this location. Well, that's part of a story. It could be, hey, we're doing this project. That's a story. It could be just documenting what's going on behind the scenes. Again, obviously not anything that's commercially confidential or commercially sensitive, but interesting stuff. The fly-on-the-wall documentary. We love. You know, people will be far, far more interested than you can ever imagine to get a behind-the-scenes shot or behind-the-scenes view or a behind-the-scenes little video clip of your world. And most people sit there thinking, they won't, not the stuff I do. Oh, yes, they will. Storytelling and documenting is the biggest growth thing. We're all curious. We're all really nosy. Why are these celebrity fly-on-the-wall documentaries the biggest thing on terrestrial TV? It's because we're all curious and nosy. That's not going away. It's becoming more and more pertinent in digital. So storytelling is a really, really important thing to be thinking around. I've said about being current, relevant and informed. What I mean by that with the relevance is kind of what's in it for them. It could be that the documenting that you're doing of a particular project means that they can see some little hooks and think, do you know, I'd like you guys to come in and talk to us about that because we've been thinking about that. It might open up a little opportunity like that. It could be that they see, oh God, I didn't realise you did it like that. That's an interesting way of working. We hadn't thought about that because our supplier at the moment, they do it differently, but yours looks actually a really good way of doing it. Can you come and talk to us about it? So what you're doing by telling stories is you're opening up little opportunities that allows you to just resonate with what your customers are listening to. And of course, if they can share what you post, and of course that's all the time you're thinking, is this shareable? Is this something that's going to be of value to everybody? Then you stand much more of a chance of really getting that to resonate. And there are 3 different types of storytelling, okay? So we're talking about documenting, and that is about the visual diary. So you can do it with images, you can do it with words if you're much more of a words person, or, as is becoming obviously increasingly more popular, is you can do it with little short video clips. So you turn the camera around to yourself. Now, some of you are going to be thinking, oh my God, I'm not doing that. But the world would like it. Okay, so I'm just putting it out there. This is a big opportunity. The world does want to see this from you. Whether you choose to do it or not is your call. But the world would like to see this from you. Turning your smartphone around and just doing a little video clip. Hey, I'm in Watford today. I'm presenting at this workshop, and actually one of the questions that came out was a really interesting one, and I answered it like this. Post. It's gone. And you think, nobody's going to be interested in that. Yes, they are. It's a little fly on the wall. It's a little part of your day. It's a little bit of something that's just a little bit different, and it just might resonate. It's only got to resonate really with one person who says, oh God, yeah, no, I face that as well. Oh yeah, I must remember to email Neil on that. Boom, opens the conversation. So little clips like that. If something has stopped you in your tracks and you thought, you know, that was actually really good, that was a good little moment, or that was an interesting quote, or oh my God, what a view from this window, whatever it happens to be, documenting your day is a really powerful way of storytelling. And it means you don't have to plan this ahead. You just got to be awake to the opportunity to be sharing stuff. And it is incredible how interested people will be. So documenting is one. Creating content, I'll come back to curate in a minute. Creating content is all about using your LinkedIn profile to basically create new content, and that happens to be probably based around a particular topic that you're particularly interested in. So it could be that there's some kind of sort of technical innovation, or there could be some kind of sort of process thing that you're involved in, or whatever it happens to be, and you create content probably planned in advance that you share through your updates and you share through articles that you publish. So you're creating content. Now, you're probably sat there thinking, yeah, it's going to take a lot of time, not really quite sure what the subject would be. Okay, I can probably think of 4 or 5 articles, and then I'm going to get writer's block. I'm not going to be able to think of how to sustain it. So that's where your little friend, the curation form of content, comes into play. So curation is all about using other people's content and drawing it all in by owning and taking ownership of a topic or a subject. So this is what's called thought leadership. So basically it's like owning a subject. Okay. Now I've got a little topic that I curate around, and it's going to be the tool of the little workshop exercise you're going to do in a minute. And I basically talk a lot about content curation and content creation and content documentation using this little tool. And I spend a lot of time curating other people who have used it, and there are some big players now who have been using this tool, and so I use them as case studies. I bring in examples from my clients. I talk about when I use it. I share, sessions like this where I've mentioned it. So I've got this little hub of content which I've curated, in other words, drawn in from other people's sources, which means there's a whole bunch of content that I'm publishing that wasn't mine at all. But I'm being a good social citizen by sharing other people's content on that topic. So another rhetorical question for you is there a subject or a topic that's of interest to you, that's kind of supportive of your elevator pitch, that you'd be interested to share content on, that would also resonate with your target customer? Okay? If you can join all those dots together with topic X, whatever topic X is, there's an opportunity to be seen and perceived as current, relevant and informed, because you're always talking about this topic. And then when somebody wants that topic, who are they going to go to? This is how influencers become influencers. They do this very, very same process. So they understand that the customer is going to want, or the audience is going to want, this particular topic, and they become the experts, the thought leaders in that topic. You don't have to know everything about that topic to be able to do it, because you're curating. So you're just watching and listening and building this pot, if you like, of content, some of it yours, but a whole bunch of it created by other people. So it's not particularly time consuming. You've just got to be aware of the topic that's going to resonate. So the stuff, as we mentioned, that you can be including in this kind of content, any events, your daily life, campaigns, specialist topics, the list will be endless, and it's all about just kind of figuring out what is that subject X and what kinds of things can I put into this pot to keep my profile alive. And always, for those of you who were at the sales psychology session sort of before lunch, you'll know that this is all about your customers' outcomes. The spin that you put on your content, okay, is all about what's in it for them. You start talking about what's in it for you and talking about the features and benefits of your products and constantly push and try and sell through social media, it unbalances the relationship. The best way to keep the relationship balanced is to constantly be thinking when you're publishing stuff, and actually when you're communicating in general, to be honest, what is it that's going to make their life better as a result of seeing this content, seeing this image, watching this video? How can I add some real value that improves their world? That's the big tick in the box. If you can do that with every little piece of content that you publish, you stand a chance of remaining on their radar. So there's a lot to think about in this storytelling thing. So where would you start? Well, I said there was a little tool, and we're going to play with this little tool sort of for the rest of this session, because it's really important to strike the balance. As communicators, as salespeople, as marketers, as business development people, we've got something we want to communicate, or we've got something we want to sell. That's a fact. The problem with using social media and digital and LinkedIn for that is the audience, they kind of know that, but that's not all they want to hear. So they want to see a balance. And so what we have is our secret or magic rule of thirds. 1/3 is personal, getting to know the real you, and that was what we were saying about the whole kind of sort of mountain biking thing, so I just put that out there. Well, that was me doing a personal third. Okay, so you know I'm a marketing consultant, you know I do sales training and blah, 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 but I'm also a mountain biker. So it's not selling anything, it's not pushing anything, it's not asking you to do anything as a result of it, but it's getting to know the real you. 1/3 is point, and this is sharing relevant third-party content that you know will add value and resonate with your audience. That's the point. And 1/3 is the promote, the overt sale, because people know you're in business, they know you want to communicate something, and that's fine. It's fine as long as the other 2/3 of all of the content that you publish has been personal and point. And this just works. So when I first came up with the rule of thirds, I was using Twitter as an example to kind of do this. It's quite a few years ago now. And I was basically running sessions like this. I was doing, big conference talks and saying to people, if you can break this, if you can prove to me that this doesn't work, please come back and tell me. Because everybody I've told this to, everybody who's trying and experimenting with this, they are all saying it works. So I will absolutely guarantee you that this will work for you as well, okay? If it doesn't, please track me down and find me. It's Neil Wilkins on LinkedIn, you will find me there, and let me know that it didn't work for you, because I would love an example where it doesn't work. This is the balance of getting social media content right. If you can strike a balance with your social media account that just flows on the basis of, if you were to look back over the last 30 things that you published on your LinkedIn account, roughly 10 will be personal, getting to know you, roughly 10 will be signposting to other people's relevant content, and roughly 10 will be the overt, more promotional style selling kind of message. It just seems to work. So 3 is a really magic number. 3 is a magic number in photography, in nature, in art. The rule of thirds works in so many different sort of situations and scenarios, and it works in LinkedIn and other social networks as well. It just seems to work. But what you've got to do is you've got to figure out what you're going to share. And like you say, you want this to be professionally personal. There might be some real personal, private personal stuff that you don't want to share, and that's totally fine. This is your professional personal, okay? This is the real deal maker that most people miss out on, this third about pointing. The problem that you've got is if you just do the personal and then just do the promote, you become predictable. People know what's coming. Oh, he's going to talk about himself, and then, oh, he's going to try and sell me something. This third about sharing relevant third-party content, so stuff that other people have been publishing, this is the bit that makes you unpredictable. Because if you can imagine, I mean, really good example that I always sort of quote is recruitment agencies. Okay, so if you looked at a recruitment agent's or recruitment consultant's LinkedIn account or Twitter account, what would you see? Job, 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 job. You know what's coming. All they're doing is this. They haven't built the relationship. They're not sort of setting up a value framework. So if you're not looking for a job, why are you going to connect with that person? You're not, because you know what you're going to get hit with. But as an example, if you got to know them, so you got an opportunity to see the great charity work that the agency or the consultancy does, they're sort of sharing, you know, some of the interesting characters in the organisation, you know, you could get to know them. If in the point bit they were sharing, you know, careers advice, you know, personal development guidance, salary surveys, events that are coming up in your town, then you'd be happy to get the occasional job. And so that's why this works. It's about striking a balance that drip feeds and keeps people consistently engaged and on your radar. So this is going to be the task that I'm going to set you for the next 20 minutes or so. Is think about your elevator pitch, think about your LinkedIn account right now, and start to think about some of the things that you could put into each of these three categories. So I'm going to suggest you work in twos. Yeah, I think we've got an even number. Yeah, we have got an even number. It's perfect. So work in pairs and explore the things that you could put into these three categories. My prediction is that 2 out of these 3 categories you'll find quite easy to do. My prediction is that one of them, as you start to fill in the spaces in your little there's a content wheel there, is one of them might be just slightly more tricky. That's normal. That is absolutely normal, and that is where most people will be starting from. But the idea is that you balance ideas of things that you could actually be adding in as your content on a regular basis, but you balance it so that the next 9 things that you publish, there will be 3 personal, 3 point, and 3 promote.